Oh no, now the knee. Well, that was it. Manu, what's he done there? He's sold the dummy with a knee injury. It's a fake knee injury. That is set up a try from Momirovski.
It's the next tackle. He gets an offload. He goes back and gets some football. Probably feels a cramp coming on in the back of his calf. And then just takes off.
Oh, what a beauty. So, you pick which has been the better moment. The bloke kicking the ball back from the traffic at the southern end, or Manu, the cramp, the fibber, and takes off to set up a try.
Welcome back, ladies and gents, to another episode of the Supercoach Tragics podcast. I'm your host, Dan. Tonight we have the dynamic duo again, Dan and Glenn. Mate, how was your week last week, mate?
Yeah, it was good. You put me on the spot there. I just thought, gee, I don't even know what I scored. But I went up. That's all I remember. I legitimately cannot remember what I scored.
That's right, mate. I always throw the tough questions out. That's what a good podcast host
you'd
does,
know,
mate.
wouldn't you, what I scored? But I went up, whatever it was. So, 1,015.
Right. If you're above 1,000, pretty solid score. So,
yeah.
For those who were listening last week, they're all very aware that I was actually going and giving up this week. I didn't want to. I just didn't want to waste any trades. Didn't want to do anything stupid, and I just took the hit. And I got I think 850 or something, not very high. But what I did do is I went from, I think, just outside the 1,000, the 1,015 up to 1,700. So to me, that is not a big loss.
Yeah.
If I'm gonna have a hit, I don't mind having a hit on a very low scoring round. Yeah. So and now I'm set for the run home. Just gonna put some final trades in, bring some Origin players in. Yeah. Which we'll probably talk about today, whether we jump on now or next week and see how we go. So
so I brought in Munro only, and that scored me 91 points, and I did that so I got 600k in the bank, so I can jump on Cleary for feeder, bang bang.
Yeah, very nice, very nice.
Yeah.
We'll start off with the Tragics overall group. So it is very, very tight up the top here. Number one, Glenn from Here Come the Bears, killing it. They've been on top for a while now, in 10th place overall. Unbelievable work there. But just closely behind, we've also got Lux for Losers. Just quietly, I'm in a cash comp with this guy, and it's very intimidating having this guy in the comp next to me. But he's currently 16th overall. And then in third place, we have Chicken and Cheese from Adam's team there, and he's sitting in 17th overall. So top three are all in top 20. So that's amazing effort, guys. Very close up there, business end of the comp. So very good work. All right, let's start off with the first game. So I see a lot of Supercoach points coming out of this game. A lot of attacking stats. Glenn?
Yeah, I agree. So I'm bringing in Kalen Ponga. That's one of the things I'm bringing in this week for Buller. I kept Buller for that buy round, and I lost a little money on him, but I'm cashed up. So I'm going to go Buller to Ponga. He's the one that I really do like for this. I think another couple that are interesting is, if you don't know, is Best. I actually like Bradman Best. I think he's been playing well, and Marzu from the Tigers. I would hold this week, but if you got Stefano Ukrickamano, he could be a sell next week down to enough. I mean, I have Tarpany and Horse up there at the moment, so I'm going to play Stefano, and I've got 17 players, so it covers that particular other one out. But yeah, I was thinking I was going to go Haas this round, but he's out as well, so he's the only one I'd be looking at getting rid of. I mean, if you got Bateman, he could be an upgrade now if you don't own Fafita. I think Tigers are a sell. I don't really like anyone either in the other than Kalen Ponga and the two backs, Best and Marzu, to be fair.
Yeah, I had a few questions asked throughout the week. People saying, is Marzu a good centre wing to have for the run home? And I say yes. Good run home. He's got very solid base, and he has a decent ceiling. So you can do way worse than having Best in your having Marzu in your team for the run home. And Best also probably not as high a ceiling, but definitely has solid base as well. So
definitely a good fifth, sixth option as well. A lot of people have Manu, Holmes, Gary, Meany. There's a handful of them that are out there. But I agree with you. I think that of the two, I really like Marzu based on his base.
I think I'm looking at Ponga for a big score in this game. They play really well, good attacking, expensive football when they're playing at McDonald Jones Stadium at home. So
Yeah.
I just seem the attacking just seems to happen. And one player I don't like him as a buy, but if you have say uh, a low cheap second rower, I don't mind Fitzy. Him and Fitzy, Ponga and Fitzy do work really well together. I've got Fitzy in one of my drafts, and I've actually got the VC on him. Because we know how Fitzy has that chance to go 100 plus when he needs to. So,
Yeah, I got Fitzy in my draft as well.
yeah. All right, game two on Saturday. We got Bulldogs versus the Broncos. So, any thoughts here? Anything really jumping out at you?
Yeah, so the big talking points for Bulldogs is Jacob Preston. I notice a lot of people are offloading him now to Fifita. I don't hate it, based on other second rows. But I mean, a guy that gets 60 without attacking stats, is a player for me that I'm not in a rush to sell, to be fair. And but this could be a good matchup for the Broncos. I do like Katoni Staggs in this. As you're looking for a pod, I think Katoni Staggs could be, or even Farnsworth, either side. I think both of those two as centres could be great pods on the run home. Apart from that, I don't like anyone else. I don't hate if you got Carraz, but personally, I'd be upgrading now. I think it could be time. For this particular round, we've got 3 clubs out, so people might be struggling for numbers. So maybe a hold until next week as we start bringing in the keepers now.
Yeah, Carraz has definitely taken a bit of since coming back from injury, he's taken a bit of a downward plummet. He was looking so good at the start of the year. Well, at the start of the year, I would have kept him for the whole year the way he was playing. He was on fire, and then coming back from injury, he's just hitting low 20s. He's not having much luck. So,
Well, the
um,
interesting thing about Carraz is he's been moved this week to centre from wing.
mm,
So, I mean, he won't bring back those tough carries, which could reduce his base, but it will put him in a better position for scoring points. Whether he gets them versus the Broncos is another question. So, I think Carraz is an upgrade.
and if we're looking Carraz, he normally plays on the right wing. So if he's playing in the right centre position, he's up against Staggs, and Staggs we know he's actually quite a very good defender.
So is
Um,
Farnsworth for that matter.
yeah,
So I agree, but
yeah.
Staggs is a demon defender.
Oh yeah, very good reading the game. So,
Yeah,
yeah. So I have a bit of a predicament in my team, which we'll get to later, where I've only got the one front rower this week, and I'm not going to sell Haas.
yeah.
However, I've only got 17 players. Oh, sorry, I've got 16 players. With one trade, I'll have 17 players. So I'm not going to trade in a front rower because I'm happy with my front row. I can pick a player anywhere and get him as an AE. So but I'm hoping that I'm going to have an AE no matter what. So I essentially got a free loop this week. So.
I'm in the same position. I have one front rower and I've got exactly 17. And
Mm.
I can cash out and take all my money and upgrade Katoa to Cleary and make one trade, or I can actually go another way and go Ponga and Cleary, or Ponga and Fafita. I'm still debating which way of those two I want to go. Fafita's got to break even of 40, which is a lot lower than what Cleary's is. But
Mm.
versus the Dolphins, I reckon Cleary could,
Do anything.
they've
Yeah.
got a high ceiling that side. But look, yeah, I
Yeah.
have the same predicament.
Yes. All good. So we'll move on. Nothing really much to talk about in that game. So we'll move on to the next game. Um, Playing at 4 Points Park, Manly and Cowboys. Cowboys are taking a bit of a turn. Do you reckon it's going to be a change in their team, or do you reckon that's just a one-off?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, there's a few in here that I liked. I mean, I really like Valentine Holmes now. I think it's time to jump versus Manly. Manly do tend to leak at different stages. This is at home for Manly from memory.
Yeah, 4 points, mate. Yeah.
Yeah, so that could be a reason maybe to hold 1 week on Holmes. I
Mm.
can't remember what his break even is, to be 100% honest, but he's one that I'm looking at is Holmes, but not this round. I still like Luciano Leilua, but they're playing corner around with the second rowers, and so I don't know if I would do that. But Olakawatu's the other one. Like people have been asking me, do I sell Olakawatu? Do I sell Garrick? No on Garrick. I don't know if I'd sell Olakawatu either, unless you're going to someone like Fafita. But Schuster is definitely a sell.
Mm. Yeah, I think when Turbo went out in that first Origin, I think I asked you a question. Obviously you didn't know the answer because it was we're not in the mind of the coach, but I said now that they've got no Turbo, they know they have no Turbo. Does Garrick fill in at fullback? And obviously he does now. So that was a question I had. And now that he's playing fullback, his ceiling is not going to be as high. But what it is, he's going to have a lot solid, more solid base. You can rely on it. So to me, he's still a keep for the rest of the season. So really, really happy I kept him. I was a bit nervous there for a little bit, but I kept him, and I'm glad I held strong. So
And he's getting involved a lot. So Gary
mm,
likes to put his hands on the ball, and he is coming left and right of the ruck, which is good. So he does come in those attacking plays, which is handy. I don't mind Kohler as a pod either, but I I stand by what I say. With Turbo out of the side, they're not a ceiling club anymore, and there are clubs that are ceiling clubs on the run home. But I do feel that Valentine Holmes is the main play of these two. Schuster's a sell. Ola Kawatu, I wait one more week, have another look. Like I feel
mm.
like outside DCE, Olakau'atu could get some good points. So I don't know if I'd be selling him.
And I think this matchup, I know the Cowboys have had a bit of a turn, but I think this matchup for Olakawati is actually not too bad. And because you made a kind of you softened to it before earlier where you said that they're not sure what they're doing, chopping and changing with the second row. And that having that no consistency in their second row does mess up their defensive read. So Olaquatu could actually probably get a meat pie in this game, and I reckon that could possibly happen. Not saying anything negative about the second rows in that team, but they haven't really had a chance to settle as a team. They're constantly changing all the time. So
Yeah.
yeah. All right, next game. I'm looking forward to this game. I'm hoping the Roosters can actually turn up. So just to have a bit of a decent game. But Roosters versus Melbourne in Sydney. Um, is this a good matchup for Munster, do you think?
No. Well, maybe. I don't know. I mean, I think that this is a better looking Roosters outfit. They've got a lot of players back. They've got Egan Butcher's back. They've got Gus back from memory. I can't see him there. Stilly Tupanua was supposed to be back as well. Can't see him either. Geez, they were all named to come back, but they're not there. Yeah, I don't know. The Roosters just aren't the same side. I mean, there's a lot of people asking me should they sell Tedesco, and I mean, look, I would wait on that and go to Latrell. Latrell's coming in. I'm holding Gutherson, and I was looking to go to Tedesco, but I think I might go to Latrell now that I know he's on his way back.
Mm.
Billy Smith's a sell. Manu's a hold. I don't know if I'd be looking anyone else in there. I'd keep my eye on the second row position. If Gus or Stilly Tupanua get a full-time spot, but I'll tell you who I do like there. Oh, I just realised something. Oh, yes, that's Wong. Mate, if Wong
Mm.
can get some minutes, he's interesting, but I mean, it's a bit late to be trading down to someone like that. From the Storm, Munster, and Harry Grant. I don't know if I'd be jumping on Grant now, but he's definitely someone you want for the run home. I have Grant, I have Cook. Um, yeah, I don't know. They're the only ones I like, Munster and Grant, mate. What about you?
Yeah, I'm just a bit nervous because like these teams, we know what they have been in the past, but they haven't really been that this year. So
Yeah,
it's hard to know what you're going to get.
yeah,
And I that's what we'll talk about a bit later. Is like after we get through the teams, I reckon is what kind of the Origin players are going to do when they come back. Do we wait a week and do we move on?
yeah.
That's why I'm really contemplating on Munster because I can go shoot straight to Munster right now, and with the cash I've got in the bank, which I don't mind doing. But remember what happened last time? Munster backed up from Origin. He was crook. He likes to celebrate. So I'm not sure if he actually does back up. But if he does he play a full game? Um,
He
if he
didn't.
was playing in Melbourne, you know what? I'd be all over that. I'd
Yeah.
probably say that would tip the point for me. But I think I'm holding off a week.
Well, Roosters notoriously are slow starters, and they do finish the season strong. And I do see that they're slowly building. They are looking better. A few of them, and yeah, I tend to agree with you. I think I'd hold off on Monster a week. Depending on your side. You've got someone like a Qatar or someone you need to get rid of, and you can go to a Monster. Yeah, great. But a lot of players traditionally when they back up from Origin tend to score not so well. I mean, occasionally some will go well, but as a rule, overall, a lot of them seem to have that fatigue.
Yeah, well, one thing I actually think when you look at that, I think there's players out there who might play a very few minutes in a game, and they didn't get a chance to prove themselves on Origin night, and they come out and go
Yeah,
berserk the next week.
yeah,
And that's why I think Gutho is going to be in for a cracking game this week,
yeah,
and I'm going to be very scared not owning Gutho this week. So,
yeah. I'm looking forward to seeing. I'm telling you, there's a part of me that wants to get Moses as well.
mm,
I just think Moses is looking terrific this year, and I just want to put my hand up as saying he was one of my options. I said that should be at 5'8" outside of Cleary, and I
mm,
stand by that, man. I think that it's not a terrible option. I just don't think Hines is ready. And anyway, we won't get into Origin talk, but he Walker and Moses looked really good last night, especially Walker. I actually own Cody Walker, and I'm tempted to go Cody Walker to Cleary this week, and I know that's a big call because, and I don't know if I want to let go of Walker, but I bought in Ponga. And
mm.
but I'm scared to not own Ponga with the matchups that they've got coming up. But I want Cleary. But there's part of me might just go Ponga, Hole, Walker, and C on Cleary. I don't know. We'll see how it plays out, I guess.
It's a tricky one because there's so many players that are scary not to own.
Yeah.
There's only certain amount of spots in our team that we can put these players in. So,
Yeah. And
but
I've been saying all year, I believe South are a top four side. And I believe with Latrell Mitchell, they're a chance to. I see Penrith and South grand final, but Latrell has to be there. I keep saying that he has to be there.
Yeah. All right, we'll move on to the next game. This game here, I actually see it being quite a low-scoring game, and that's Sharks versus the Warriors. The reason why I say they're both Warriors defending quite well. Sharks normally have a decent attack and decent defense, but they're playing in New Zealand. So this, to me, I think is going to be a close game and a very low-scoring game for Supercoach as well.
And this will be a very forward game. So,
Yeah.
if you're a Nickel Clockstad owner, I'd be nervous, or even a Sean Johnson owner for this particular matchup, even a Hines. I don't see Hines as going a big score. I think players like Talakai could do well. Mulatalo could even make you nervous for this particular matchup. Or Qatar, I just think that I agree with you. I think this would be a good game for Aiden Fanua-Blake and maybe a Jackson Ford, Britt Nakora, those kind of players. I think that there'll be a lot of move around there. But if you're looking for players for the run home, I like Talakai. I think he's a great little pod. If you don't own Hines, you need to get him, but you can wait a week. Britt Nakora, I think, is a player for the run home. I don't hate Wilton. Also, Curran, I'm not sure on that because of his position in the side, but I'd be selling Tohu Harris, even though he had that big game. I just think that was a one-off for Tohu. But I was looking at his scores with my son the other day. He hasn't had anything under 50, which is interesting. But do you know who I do like in this game? Is Mitch Barnett. I thought he was friggin' phenomenal last week, and he had low break even. I think that he moved from front row into second row. He was so good at second row.
Yeah, it's so good even when he was playing with the Knights, he'd go from lock to second row, play the full 80. So you get the best of both worlds. You get the chance of him to score a try on the edge. Then you get that crazy workload he does in the middle because he's one of those guys that just works and works and works. And he's at for the price point that he's, I don't know off by heart, but I know that he was at a decent price point for what his output is potentially available for. So I don't mind him at the moment, but I got nervous when you just named all those people that are to be nervous about, and then the people that are going to be scored well, because you named a lot of my team. I realize now how many actual players I have in this team. I've got Nikora, I've got Hines, I've got SJ, I've got Mulatalo, I've got AFB, I've got Ford. I've got a big people.
I tell you what, I nearly bought Luke Metcalf. And I don't know if you remember, I mentioned Luke Metcalf last week. I thought he's a great little proposition. But I looked at the draw going forward, and I thought I didn't like what's ahead. But I tell you what, he had an outstanding game last week, and anyone that jumped on, and I noticed a few people did, well done to them. It was definitely something I considered going Katoa to him just for the points, and I wished I had it. It would have been a fruitful buy.
Yeah, he was looking good. He was looking like he was at the trials, where everyone was so looking forward to watching him and getting him in their team, and then he got injured, unfortunately. But he is he's going to be a future talent there. And I think having the SJ's experience there as well, he's going to get better and better and better. And when SJ, I know he's re-signed, which is great, but when SJ does finally move on, it's going to be a very good halfback in the future.
He looks good he looks good when he takes on the line. I remember saying at the start of the season, I kept rattling off the players that were named for New Zealand, and I kept saying Luke Metcalf. And every time I wrote it in certain chats, they're like, and I'm like, mate, I'm telling you, this player's a good kid. This kid's got talent, and you just watch if he just gets a minute. And then he got injured because I was actually going to start Luke Metcalf. I actually considered at the very start of the season, to be my bottom dollar instead of Katoa. And but obviously he got injured and never got to prove his worth. But he's showing it now, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, nervous one for Supercoach that game.
Yeah, which is just made me even more nervous realizing how many players. I probably got about 7 players in this bloody game. That's horrific. All right, I'll move on to the next game. Dolphins versus the Panthers. I think the Panthers could put on a bit of a number here. I think the only saving grace really is the games at KO Stadium.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean, there's some interesting ones here. I mean, Ozako's a hold. He's probably the only person I'd own in that particular whole team, being truly honest with you. I mean, I had Nikorima and sold him early, and but I have Katoa, but I can move him on to Cleary if I want this week. And the fortunate thing for me is that Cleary's named possibly to come back. And if he does play, I've got the trade is from him to him in this game, which means it's really beneficial for me. And if it doesn't happen, then I can go to Fafita in the last game. So I'm handy for that. But a few players in here I do like. So I don't think Taruva's a sell. Most people are selling. I think he's an interesting 5 or 6 player on your bench based on matchups. But Ozaga Toho, and Cleary are all players that I'd be looking at for the run home, and even possibly Liam Martin.
Yeah, Liam Martin's that interesting one. Because he at the start of the year he was a bit injured, coming off the bench when he finally came back. So if he does score that 8-minute rollback, which we know he can do, he's definitely undervalued, underpriced. So
I've got a couple of games string together.
Oh, he definitely ran. But I also feeling he's not very consistent. He has a tendency to score tries, but he can let you down on occasion too. Where he's to me he's an option, but he'd be like if I wasn't going to nuff in my second row, I would have him as my last second rower as a guy that you play on matchups.
So what I like about Panthers is, so I look at ceiling sides and I see Panthers as a ceiling side, and I can see a game where players like Toho, Targo, Taruva, Crichton, and possibly Sorensen all go off, and obviously Cleary as well. So, any one of those players, if you're looking for a pod outside of Cleary, I don't hate. Toho's the one I specifically like the most.
Yeah, definitely. Alrighty, moving on to the final game, and Parramatta versus the Titans at CommBank Stadium. This could be a blowout, I reckon, depending on how many players back up from Origin for Parramatta.
Yeah, well, as I said to you, I've just stuffed things up here. Sorry. Just give me a second. I just went to Sportsbet somehow. But look, I really like Parramatta. I really like Gutho for this game. I really like Moses for this game. Lane's on his way back. He could be interesting as the season unfolds. I own Maddo. So one of the questions, I will get to it later on, was asking, but the players I like in this to buy. I think Gutherson, if you have, he's a hold. Mitchell's on his way back. Who you want to pair with Mitchell, whether it be Walsh, Gutherson, Teddy, that's your choice. But I'm holding Gutherson, and Mitchell will be my run home. I really like Mitchell Moses, and for those that want something a little different, instead of going Hines Cleary, you could look at taking one of those out based on the draw and having Moses Cleary or Moses Hines, and I don't hate it.
Yeah. One thing I'll actually ask you now, because I've got a few, because I've got one player that I really want to offload. I got a pod a couple of weeks back, and that's not Nofaluma. Not injured now. I'm not sure when he's coming back. And to me, he's a sell. I'll get rid of him now.
Yeah.
Would you? So I got my fullbacks right now. Dylan Edwards and Ponga. Would you trade Nofo and then bring Manu down from 5'8", put Ponga up to 5'8", and then bring Gutho in this week? Would you trade him in? Because I'm thinking that, because I'm thinking about doing the one trade to get my 17th player, and I feel like that's the one.
And I like it because it puts Ponga up at 5'8". It allows you that spot of having Gutho down there, and then you can bring Mitchell in to pair with him, and you've still got that nice 5'8" sitting there, which I really like. Ponga, he's got the upside.
Yeah.
And then from the other side, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off then. And Tino for Sualu, I think, is a great buy for the run home. And David Fifita, we all know he's having a stellar season. And especially if you're head-to-head or over either one, you're going to need David Fifita, because he's someone that can kill you around in a heartbeat.
Yeah, and a lot of people, I'm hearing a lot of talk about, the Titans run home is a bit tough, but I find that the Tinos and the Fifitas are the guys that really they embellish those tough games where they could get beaten 44-12 and the 2 tries were scored by Fifita, because he's that guy that'll fight for everything.
Yeah, every year Fifita's always had the ceiling, right? Because we know he puts in those points where he puts in the passes and he gets those tries, but he never had the base. His base was around 40, right? But this year, Fifita has taken his game to another level where he's doing them tough carries and he's doing the defence that he needs to. He's moving in, so his base is really good. Then on top of that, he's got the offload, he's got the pass outside, and and although they can let in points to Titans, they can put them on as well. And Fifita tends to be involved in that when it happens. So Fifita, and if you're looking for someone for the run home, if you really need another forward now and you are buying someone this week, Tino would be the guy I'd be chasing.
Yeah, that was, I thought about that because I thought I haven't got Haas, but I've got a few jewels I can move around, so I could bring in someone, keep Haas, and then bring in Tino. But I was like, I believe Tino's a trade-in for next week. because I see what the forwards do at Origin. It's a very tough game for forwards, and it's hard for them to back up as solid.
Yeah,
Understanding it's the last game, but I also found that there's word around that if you play 2 days later, it's actually easier than
yeah.
playing 5 days later because your muscles start to cool down and everything. So and then I thought, you know what, I've got Tarpany, I've got Haas, and I've got AFB. To me, that's all I really need for the run home, and I'm happy to survive with that. And I'll focus on my ceiling players.
If you're looking for a pods on the way home, so Dylan Brown's due back in 2 rounds, right? Dylan Brown. So if you can hold on some trades and you want to win the head-to-heads, Parramatta are good. They don't play the very last round, but you'll get to play them in the finals, right? Parramatta will play right through the finals. Having Dylan Brown, but having Lane as a pod outside of Dylan Brown could be a real winning play. I think if you can get Lane early even and then have Brown outside him. I'd wait another couple of rounds before I jumped on Lane. But when his break even comes down and he's getting 4 minutes, Lane has the upside, especially when Brown's in the side, because Brown has that beautiful jink, step, offload, and passes to Brown, and he also puts in little kicks that Lane chases. So, yeah.
If you were to get on that, and because that one there to me is a big risk, but it is a high reward just because of Lane's injury past. But if you're going to, like, everyone's got an injury past usually, but Lane's just having a horrible year, unfortunately for him. But if you can get on him and he stays healthy, that's an uber pod. That's massive. So
yeah, and I'd be waiting till Brown's in the side, so that gives you 2 more rounds to look at Lane, and then you can make that decision then. And you might say, "Hey, Glenn, you're off your head." But in 2 rounds, if you have a look at it, gives you 2 rounds to look at him. He gets his match fitness, is what we need, and we know that he's passed through those injury woes.
yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, that pretty much wraps up the games this week. So let's talk some of the players from Origin that are meant to be backing up, and we'll also throw Cleary into that conversation as well.
Yeah.
So I think we've had a bit of a discussion on Munster. Uh, I feel as though after the last time he was meant to back up, he was a bit crook. We don't know the whole story, whether he was on the beers or whether he was actually had a flu. But I think he's probably more than likely going to rest. If he does play, he might get rested during the game anyway.
Yeah, and that's even possible for Grant. So look, people think, oh, Queensland probably didn't go out and drink and celebrate, but they've won the series, right? So they would have went out and had a night. And New South Wales, because they got that victory, they've gone out and had a night. I can tell you that there'll be quite a few players that have had a big one. You know what I mean? So I agree with you. Look, Nathan Cleary is an interesting one. Do you jump now? He's got a high break even, but he's got a good matchup. He's in a ceiling side. He's coming back from a serious injury. You know, like it's an interesting one as to whether you go there. The ones that are backing up. So we've got Grant and Cook. Cook's not playing this week, so that's safe. Grant, Munster. But look, what I would say is if you've got them, play them. If you don't, I don't know if you're jumping, on them now. I think that you can wait 1 more round. Trades are at a premium. We don't have a lot of them, so it's not going to hurt you. Grabbing someone like Gutherson that played 5 minutes, beautiful. But some of them other ones, that even Bradman Best, some of them other players, they had, Cameron Murray, Dylan Walker, Cody Walker from South, so they don't play this round, so it doesn't hurt. But all the others that do, Tino, Peter, Grant, Munster, who else would you say stands out that you'd want to get that aren't Souths? Palmatungi, Cody. Yeah, they'd be the main four, wouldn't they? Munster, Grant.
Yeah, and then you got to think, one person who I think will back up, and he tends to do it quite often, and that would be Teddy. I know that so Teddy is very, very, he's used, especially after game 3. He tends to have that. He likes to bring the Roosters home strong, and I can see Teddy being a reasonable hold for now. And I think you might be pleasantly surprised with the results you'll get towards the end of the year. But imagine having Teddy of old as a pod in your team.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what people don't know is Tedesco, his stats are still very good, right? He still runs 200 plus meters a game. He still gets tackle bust. He just hasn't been the ceiling player that we're used to seeing with Tedesco. But the Roosters are on the build, and he's the captain of the Roosters, and they need him at the moment. They're 1 shot out of the 8, so they need every win they can get. So, yeah, I agree with you, Dan. I think that Tedesco backs up and plays 80.
Yeah. One thing I will say, you mentioned on Cleary whether you jump on this week or next. I'll tell you what, I think if Penrith were playing at home this week and I knew Cleary was playing, I'd probably have a crack at jumping on. But because they're playing away, and he's back one. It's kind of a blessing for me because I reckon next week is the best week to jump on when he's playing at home against the Bulldogs.
Yeah,
I think Cleary is a good jump on next week.
yeah.
So I need to add that pretty much in my plans to get him in ASAP, I reckon, because I think Bulldogs aren't looking that great. And playing at home, you know what Panthers are like at home.
Well, I'm in a
Uh,
position to go for Feeder Cleary or for Feeder Ponga or Cleary Ponga. And I've gone Ponga. That's one I've gone, I'm
mm,
happy with from Buller. But the second one is do I get for Feeder versus Parramatta with a possible injury cloud that turns out may not be true, or Cleary, who's playing against the Dolphins with the next matchup against the versus the Dogs, which is a
mm,
captain option. I think that even Cleary could be a captain option this week as a sneaky
yeah.
pod, like base, because I don't like many captain options this week. I do like Fafita as a
Mm,
captain odd, and I do like Ponga. I think that I'm hoping that Ponga has a big game so that I can just loop that with my free loop with my forward and my
mm.
week settled. So here's hoping, eh?
Yeah, well, that's kind of exactly what I was thinking. This is because I'll put a spoiler alert now. I'm going to VC Ponga, obviously, and I currently got the captain on Hines, but I am not excited about that. I am very nervous, and that's kind of the reason why I was wanted to talk to you about Gutho because I
Yeah,
feel like Gutho is a captain option
yeah.
this week.
So that's
Yeah,
that's my captain. I'm
yeah,
going VC Ponga, C on Gutherson, but I have the C on Hines because I
mm,
never usually have it on who I'm going until the last minute.
yeah.
I
So just
agree
to
with
fool
you.
everybody until you tell them on the podcast.
Until you podcast, absolutely right. But look, that I agree with you, mate. I think Gutho and I think Moses could be a sneaky pod captain this week as well if you own Moses. So either one of those, I don't hate at all.
In one of my drafts, I actually have Gutho and Moses in my team, and I'm like, which one do I captain? I don't know which one. So I'm thinking playing it safe, going the Moses route with the kicking. So but it's a bit tricky having both those guys.
In my draft, I got Tass, Kaloa, Matangi, and Cook. I just brought in Apo Coruscant to cover me on the bench to put in for him. But I've got
Mm.
Luai, Ponga, and so I'm playing Ponga. I'm leaving Luai on the bench, but Luai will be my. I'm actually missing a player, but I'm actually playing an easy one this week. I'm second or leading. I can't remember in it the one I'm in. And this week I'm playing Guy, who isn't playing. His side didn't play, so I get my free turn of points this week. Everyone else has got their free 2 points. I get mine now.
That's it. Awesome. Um, any other players we want to talk about before I got questions before we move on? Yep.
No, nothing really. I think that if you can hold off on trades this week, a lot of people are going to be short on players. People are going to have Raiders, people are going to have South players, and possibly a couple of Dragons. Although I'm not sure, maybe a Lomax or a Bird or even Jack DeBellin, and all of players that I'd be looking to move on as well.
Mm,
But you can hold for this round. Yeah, we've got some questions, mate. Let me just get them up.
let's do it.
One of them I didn't talk about delivery because I knew it was one of the questions, right? And I know already. How long is JMK out for? It's got to be cleared, so we don't know how long.
Yeah. The words that we have, the things that we do know is that initially the coach Bennett said it could be potentially the whole season. Then he gets named saying it wasn't as bad as once thought, and then he got dropped. And now he hasn't been named again. So that's everything that we know, I'm pretty sure, as the public will know. So
So the other thing he's asking is, I'm thinking of bringing in Graham. I'm not sure which Graham he means to allow me to bring in Tino.
okay, so that there is Harrison Graham, the
Yeah,
guy replacing JMK. Yeah.
yeah. Don't hate it, I guess. I mean,
Having the security of knowing how long JMK is out for would
yeah,
make that decision a lot easier because he's got
like,
60 points in his first game last week, mate. That was a pretty good score.
yeah, absolutely. He had good. He had a good work rate too. And
Mm,
also he said how many nuffs are too much. So look, we got 3 buys this round, and then there's only one all the way home, right? Um, I've got the buys. I'll read them to you at the end so you know. But if
mm,
you just type in NRL buy schedule, it'll give it to you and tell you there's one team each. South Sydney has 2, and then you'll see the rest going through. Parramatta don't have any up until the last game. He's saying one in second row, one in second wing, and one in front row. I don't hate that. Uh,
that's exactly what I'm doing.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
how I would be doing it too. Yeah,
yeah,
that's pretty much how most people will do it, mate.
yeah, yeah.
Thoughts on Maddo or Nat Butcher as a pod? Just can't get into Fafita. Look, I like Maddo, don't like Butcher. because we just don't know with Butcher. They've got Stili Tupanua and Angus Crichton to come back into their side. They were supposed to come in this week, so either one of them could steal minutes or even steal a spot and putting that Butcher back into the front row rotation. I do like Maddo. Maddo's got a base of 61 now. He's not at 5'8". He'll come in and play those minutes, and it's a good matchup for Maddo as well. I would suggest that you look at nothing out someone and getting to Fifita personally over Maddo. But Maddo, look, I like Maddo. And it will be Preston. So he's selling Preston to back. Well, I think that's sideways. Preston to Maddo sideways for me.
Yeah, because if Maddo is going to play 60 minutes, base of 60, and then you're going to get 80 minutes with more chance to score more points with the same average.
Right.
You'd really want to, like, for example, in my team right now, I would much rather, I got Preston and I got Ford. I would much rather nuff Ford, turn Preston into Fifita than, because I guess I'd probably rather have two nuffs in that position. As long as you have enough jewels to get that. I think Fifita's not a must-have, but he's going to be a very, very hard watch.
And most of us now will have 5, even 6 on our bench that we're going to have to choose from. I've got Grant, Cook, and then you go down. I've got 6 second rowers. I've got 2 halves with Hines, Cleary, Walker, and then you got your fullbacks with Gufferson and co. You got Ponga. Like, you're going to be in a position where you go. So you can nup out a couple. I agree with you. I'd go 1 up, 1 down. I think that Preston, what you just said is important. 20 minutes longer means 20 minutes more opportunities to score points, which an attacking stat, a try or whatever. I think, look, I love Maddo, but I think that's sideways, very sideways. And the last one is, do we need 2 hookers for the run home? Interestingly, I have considered nothing Cook. I'm not going to. I own Grant and Cook, and allowing me to do that, if I actually nuff Cook, it allows me to turn Katoa to Cleary and turn Preston to Fifita, and it still leaves me a lot of coin. But I'm going to run both on the run home.
Yeah, I can see that being almost a really good pod move to do. Because I've considered it too. I considered it probably before the buys even started to potentially nuff out, because I'm yet to see one standout hooker.
Yeah, I agree.
Even Grant has had his bad days. So I am happy that if you pick Cook or Grant, I'd probably go Grant if I had to pick one of them. And then they're about similar price. So if one of them goes down, you can always potentially use that trade and get him again. But it is risky, because if one of them does go down and you're at the end of the season and you've got no trades, you need to have potentially a jewel in your second row.
Yeah,
or Nicarima in 5'8", maybe even, but yeah.
Yeah, I actually like JMK better than both at the moment, although he's injured when he's playing, because in South Sydney, Cook is a great running 9, but he's not doing that in South, right? He's got 2 strong dominant halves on each side of him. So he's getting it out to Murray, Murray's getting it out to Walker, or getting it out to Walker. They're demanding a lot of ball, which means that Cook's become a shovel, left and right. And he's got 2 buyers missing, right? He's got 2 times he's going to be out on the run home. One of them being this round now. So I don't think the answer to your question is no, you don't need 2 hookers. But if you have got 2 hookers, it could be a pod move running home. That they will both can score good points on the run home.
Well, I'll tell you, I've currently got a pod hooker that I think is a pod hooker anyway. And you've had him before. You traded him out as Nicarima.
Oh, Nicarima, yeah.
I know he has a high ceiling, and he's reasonably priced. So if he does start failing a little bit, which I've seen, I had a look at his scores, look at his history, pretty safe scores with a decent attacking side. So I've got him as my backup to Cook at the moment. I am not sure whether I want to keep him. I might go Cook to Grant and keep Nicarima. I'm thinking it might be a little pod move. So
the week I sold Nicarima to Grant, Nicarima scored 105 and Grant scored 44 or something. So it was a great play by me.
And I think having a player like Nicarima, because you mentioned before, it's so hard to pick your bench when you've got you have to leave 5 players out that you normally would play. Yeah. That's why I kind of like these rounds where you're forced to play your team, because it makes it doesn't mess with your head. So Nicarima is that guy that I would be happy to leave out in hard matchup. If I got him this week, and I'm forced to play him. But if I had my 5 players, I'd leave him out against the Panthers. You know what I mean? That's why I don't mind that, having that guy you can change on matchups. And so to me, he's like my equivalent to enough where I don't need to use him, but he's there on matchup. So
Just a little stat for people that want something interesting to know as well. So centre wings. So a lot of us, one of the stats that I did, things I didn't do this year and I regret not doing is I usually stack the pack and then I go light at the back. Then on the way home, I stack the back and go light on the pack because like I'll only have the two forwards. And because centre wings notoriously score better on the run home. And a lot of that's to do with the sides are gelling. They've got cohesion. They know their gameplay. They've been playing for the season. So they know where to be, and so having a 6, even a 7th centre wing on the run home and playing all 7 could actually get you or land you a huge score. And I've had it happen with me before where I've done that before. So just if you're looking for something interesting, you're a pod and you're in overalls and you're trying to get up there and you're really struggling, that could be, or even if you're one of the top players and you're looking for a way to get into first, that could be the pod play. So yeah, it'd be interesting.
Well, that's kind of why I wanted to nuff out one centre wing, but I was also I like the idea of that too. So what I've done is I've got a player that I feel may have earned his spot, and that's Munro. I think that he might be the guy that so I've got an extra backup with a high ceiling. I see Munro like a very much a Cobbo-esque kind of player where he's got that X factor, can get a high ceiling, and he may go missing in a few games, but I feel like he's got that power. So I brought him in my team, and he's my nuff. Even though I haven't nuffed him per se, I brought him in as my low cheapie that I can keep for the run home.
Yeah, well, that's what I did last round. I bought him Munro so that I got him cheap, and I was able to put all that money aside to get clear in for feeder. And I agree with you. I think that on the right matchups, he could be a great play. But, if you've got someone like Garrick, Holmes, Manu, whoever the other ones we are, Meany, for example, Marzu, and then you were to get someone like a Targo, a Toho, a Munro, someone that an AJ, someone out, even a Tass, Farnsworth, a Stags. There's a whole stack of them that you could pick off, and what you really need to do is look through the matchups. And I'd be looking at games versus the Dragons, versus the Dogs, and sadly versus the Tigers. Although the Tigers have now got Apo Coruscant back, and
it's a big deal.
It is a big deal because he's more creative and he just tightens up the middle a lot as well. His leadership is what's needed in that side, and I think him and Brooks together were truly missing. And I'm scared to sell Buller this week. I actually have a feeling that Buller could score well first tonight, but I've gone to Ponga because I think Ponga has a higher ceiling.
There's one player that I was really hoping you were going to say then that might be a good for the run home, and I'm hoping you'll agree because I had a look at the matchups, and that's Daniel Tupou.
Absolutely.
I've got him in my team, and I'm looking at his matchups now. He's got some pretty juicy matchups. So I'm hoping that I've decided to keep him. I think he's going to be juicy. He's got plays the Titans, he plays the Dolphins. He's got Broncos, which is a tougher one. Then he's got Manly. Then he's got I think it was another weaker team. Oh, the Warriors in 23. It's not. No, that's the wrong team. Sorry, my apologies. Where was it? There was another one I saw that was good. Oh yeah, Manly. Then he has Dolphins. Then he has Parramatta, which is a tricky one in round 25. So, but I'm thinking
Sawali, who goal kicks. He could be interesting now. He's playing on the wing. You've got Mulatalo, Talakai, Katoa in a ceiling club, Targo, Critter, Toho. There's a whole host to choose from, And what you want to be doing is looking for the one with the low ownership. So I'm talking like under 10%. And Toho is that at the moment. Critter, Targo are that at the moment. Tupou is that at the moment. So it's always nice to have a good side and have that one. And Tupou is that one. The Roosters are capable of putting on points. And he's on that left side. We're outside Kiri. Tedesco plays that way and right. So I like Tupou, mate. And he has good solid base as well. So
yeah, and one of my tricks that I do, because I tend to usually play head-to-head, is I'm looking at my finals, looking at my head-to-head finals, and the players that I want, they're going to be pods in the grand final and the semi-final and all that. And I'm just looking right now. Roosters play the Tigers in round 26, which is head-to-head grand final. And then I'm looking at my other players. I've got Meany, who's playing against the Titans in round 26. So I'm feeling like I'm building my team. If I miss the grand final my head-to-head, I'll be very angry because I'm building my team around it. But really looking forward to those matchups.
The way I've always played at the start of the season is I've either had 2 hookers or I've had 5 second rowers. And then I have 2 fullbacks, they're my ceiling. And then I have 2 halves, 2 cheapie halves. And then I usually have 3 second rowers and then often 2 second rowers. So I've usually got a hooker, 2 second rowers and a fullback. And that's how I start my season. I go cheap in the back. This season I started with, I can't think of his name, the fullback that was playing for the Knights at the start of the season.
Yeah, Miller, yeah.
Miller. I had Holmes. I actually went quite expensive in the centre wing
Mm.
position, which started my season really well. Then I made this dumb decision where I sold Miller. I just did a whole lot of dumb stuff, and I paid for doing it. But look, but my point is that on the run home, I wouldn't be so much worrying about stacking your second row and stacking your front row. I'd be stacking your centre wing. I'd be stacking your halves. I'd be
Yeah.
stacking your fullback position. Their ceiling positions: 5'8", halfback, fullback, and centre wing. That's where your big points are going to come. Your 150 scores are going to come from.
Yeah, and you got to look at the people, the players that you feel like can you potentially anti-pod that player to
Yeah,
bring in a super pod. So there's players like probably a Hines. You probably don't want to. You probably think
yeah,
it's too scary to have Hines. So like in the second row, for example, or in the center wing, for example, you know what? I reckon I'm going to anti-pod probably a Holmes and use Garrick as
yeah,
my kicking
yeah,
and then use my Tupo. So there's players that and it's all judgment calls. It can be anything. My judgment call could be completely wrong, hoping to creep back in top 1,000, but the way I'm playing is extremely risky. So
mm.
it can potentially make me go down to like 10,000. So, but it's the risk I want to pay, and I want to either be up there with the best of them, or I'm going to be nowhere, which I am anyway. So,
Yeah, I'll be missing Holmes myself, mate, because I'm getting
mm,
Latrell Mitchell, I'm getting Fafita, and I'm getting Cleary. I've
yeah,
got everywhere else I'm really stacked. And but you add those three into my side, and it's a really good team. But
yeah,
I want to be able to save 4 or so trades for any problems that happen on the way home.
yeah. Well, I don't think we need to really worry about our trade talk and captain and vice captain. We pretty much summed it up. So I think I'm going Nifaluma into Gutho, and then you're bringing in going Buller to Ponga.
That's
And
right.
that's
Yeah,
pretty much everything. And then I think we've both got the same vice captain, which is going to be Ponga VC into Captain Gutho. So,
that's correct.
nice
I
and
may be
easy.
making a second trade, so I might be bringing in Fafita,
Mm,
or bringing in Cleary. So I haven't decided. If I bring in Cleary, I'm tempted to do it with Cody Walker, because if I do that, it leaves me 276k, which means I can go
mm,
Preston to David Fafita next round and save 4 trades. Whereas if I do it with Katoa, I spend all my money in one hit, and then I have to do 2 trades next week to get Fafita, and then I have to do trades to get Latrell. So there's some common sense in what I'm doing, because I've got Kalamatangi, I've got Cook, I've got Munro, and I've got Walker. I'm just
mm.
deciding, do I let go of Kalamatangi or do I let go of Walker?
Yeah. Well, I could, in that same kind of thought process, I could potentially go Dylan Edwards to Cleary.
Yeah, I like
Actually, you know what? I won't do that because I would need to. I want to hold off until I know when, and I need to move Ponga back down to fullback, which I won't be able to do. So, yeah, that makes complete. So I won't be able to do that, unfortunately.
and I like
But
Dylan Edwards matchup this round
yeah,
personally.
yeah, definitely,
Yeah,
yeah.
they really good.
He's been a pretty handy pod, but he's had a couple of games where he's not quite
Yeah,
going well, which is the kind of risk you take with Dylan Edwards. So,
yeah, absolutely. And same with Will Kennedy. They they
yeah,
they don't have the base. They're attacking kind of like players. Well, sorry, Edwards does have the base. Kennedy not so much.
yeah.
But you're right. He has his moments where he's really good and has big scores, and then he has them ones that are kind of down. But I mean, you know, that's why I mean on the run home though, as you and I both know, like the sides that you're going to see a lot more points and a lot more of the bigger players standing up.
Yeah.
This is what happens on the run home, especially you've got a pretty much congested top 10. And so any one of those 10 sides is what I'll be looking at, and the ceiling sides: Sharks, the Broncos, the Panthers, the Storm, potentially the Roosters, the Cowboys on their day.
Mm.
There's a few, Parramatta definitely. I really like the spine of Parramatta at the moment. When Brown's back, Brown, Moses, Gutherson, I think all of them are really good pods to keep. And I would, if I owned Moses now, I would consider holding him, guys. If you're looking this week to go Moses to Cleary, I would err against that decision,
Mm.
especially for this matchup. Maybe do it next week when they are at I would look at doing that next week, maybe when Cleary's versus the Dogs.
Yeah, I'm in a much more comfortable position where I can go SJ to Cleary,
Yeah, that's
which
nice.
is makes me feel a lot more comfortable because like Moses isn't as scary not to own like Cleary, but he's still you have that fear because you know what he can possibly do on his day. And against the Titans, mate, he could go mental. So
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. Especially, I really like this matchup for the Eels. I think they're a big, strong, robust side, and when their spine's in there, Moses is taking on the line so much. that I'd be very reluctant to let go of Moses. I just wish that Moses was 5'8" dual, because I would love to have Cleary, Hines, Moses, Walker. I think that would just be a high ceiling for.
And even then, you're still leaving out Munster.
That's
That's
right.
brutal. It's
Munster
brutal,
and
isn't
Ponga.
it?
And, there's others there that you could put. Even Dearden. I think Dearden on his day could be a very interesting player. I mean, you wouldn't own him over a Munster, Ponga, or a Cleary, a Manu, Moses, all the two positions that are there. But
But then he can score a 176 when Munster gets a 50 as well. We all know that. So
that's right. Yeah,
mm.
we've seen it.
Awesome. Well, one thing I want to say before we wrap up, I think this is the last week to jump into the $5 knockout comp. So, we are starting that this week. However, we've got more than 64 runners, which means we have to filter it down to 64, which means this week, the highest round scores, top 64 runners, will be advancing into the head-to-head spreadsheet that I'll be putting together on the Monday. And then from there, it's completely randomized, guys. I just push about 1,000 randomization buttons and just randomize the head-to-heads, and then we move on until one man stands, or one girl stands.
Yeah, one girl stands. I asked Rod to put me in, but if there's more than 64 runners, don't worry about me. I'm all good.
No, mate, we always have this because I don't want to get into the details, but when you have a head-to-head knockout comp, you actually need to have, it isn't an even number. You need to have a multiple of two numbers. So it has to be 2, 4, 8, 16. Yeah. So that's why we have this knockout round at the start to filter down to 64 people. So, but we'll do that this week, and then I'll post on both the Cash Comp page as well as our Tragics page of the random head-to-heads, and then last man stands. This is always the most exciting part of the year for me. I get to start spreadsheet and doing some stats up there, and I get knocked out first week usually, so it's always good.
Yeah, I mean, I've only played it twice, and the first year I played it, I made it right up a fair way, and then last year I think I only made it about 3 rounds, and then I was out. So it's very lucky, a lucky one, but because you don't know who you're going to be up against.
Yeah, I can tell you right now as well. So a lot of the times the winner comes up like you're versing in the first round. Let's say you're versing the guy coming first overall, and then that week you just have a blinder. You knock that guy out first go. I've seen people who are ranked 45,000, like 60,000, actually take the whole thing out because they've just had that right week, and even though they might have a bad week, their opponent just happens to have a really bad week, and it just happens. So anyone can win this. It is an extremely exciting little cash comp there. So,
well, make sure you jump on, guys.
Awesome. If you have any questions, guys, reach out to Brod Thompson on the Supercoach Tragics page. He'll help you out. But it's the last week, so I think we've got today. He might take a few extra entrants tomorrow before kickoff, but we'll have to wait and see. Reach out to him today, guys. Thank you very much. Anything else before we want to close up?
No. It was great to see New South Wales win. I thought that Murray starting at lock, which I've been riding all season, he should be doing, happened. I know a lot of people said to me, you can't get rid of Yo. But I really think that Murray needed to be there for those quick play the balls. And I think the fact that Walker was there, you definitely needed Murray. It highlighted it more. But it was good to see the boys win. And Bradman Best, congratulations. What a game.
Yeah, well done. I know that I found a trial on that guy, so well done.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, thanks, guys. Tune in next week, and I hope you see some green arrows this week. Peace out, guys.
Hopefully. Peace out, everyone.